Hey guys, welcome back to the JPM Performance Channel. It is time for, yes, another shop tour, and it is our last shop tour in June. Here we are, June 27th. So next week we'll be doing, it'll be your 4th of July shop tour. So make sure you come back next week to check that out. So we'll do shop tour, and as part of that we'll also do our June sprints recap, right? So step one. You guys just happened to catch me at a perfect time. So this is the X-Track sequential transmission out of the Camaro. So the thing that's really cool about this thing is, so this is a 5-speed transmission, and these are the guts. This is how big it is. This is just the back or the front for where the shifter mechanism is that rolls into the barrel, but the whole thing is right here. These transmissions are so cool and so fun to work on, and I think we've just got the dog rings kind of schmucked up in this one. So I'm going to get it apart, see what we need for bits and pieces, and call Tony Ave and get some parts and pieces for this thing, because he's the only guy that has parts for him in the US. So really cool piece. So that's what we're working on there. You can see over here on the other bench I've got some shockingly differentials apart. So I've got this is actually an RX-8 differential. You can see there's a nice OS Geiken limited slip for it here. Waiting on some bearings, another core differential here, and then I got one completed back here. So kind of had to put this project on hold until after the sprints, but now that we're back, I can do a lot more of this kind of stuff. So that's kind of what's going on there. So June sprints recap. The Integra was a complete success, and we just didn't get any results. So why is that? Well, for those of you that were paying attention, you probably know that we got about 50,000 inches of rain over the weekend while we were there. It wasn't 50,000, but I can tell you this, I had about this much water in my paddock area. So it was a really, really unique situation. So Friday morning, we went out and we practiced with the B-Spec cars, and there were, like 90-something cars out on the track all at the same time. And that was just for practice. So they gridded us and it was dry. They gridded us for qualifying. They split the group, right? So we had all the prod cars and GT Light, and then we had the B-Specs, 2A and 2B. So we didn't have to run with the B-Specs all weekend, and they didn't have to run with us. So it was actually great. But the kicker was, we're watching the radar Friday afternoon for qualifying, and obviously, when you've got 60 cars on the track at once, qualifying is going to be super critical for the way the race is going to start on Saturday. Problem was, it started sprinkling. So I actually had 2 rain tires on and 2 dry tires on, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And about the time that the 5-minute went off on the grid, it started to sprinkle, and I'm watching my phone, and I decided to go with rain tires. As it turns out, rain tires were the safe choice. They weren't necessarily the fastest choice. So the guys that were in the first, 5 rows all went out on slicks, and they did their fast lap on lap 2. And then by lap 3, 4, it was wet, right? So I'm comfortable, I've got my rain tires. I think I qualified like 14th overall, and I was 4th in H production. So that's where we're gonna start. But man, there was cars off everywhere. So the poor guys, if you remember the June sprints last year on the cool-off lap on Sunday's race, we were all on slicks and it started to rain, and the track is like ice. And unfortunately, we had a bunch of guys in the gravel. Poor Joe Mosier completely destroyed his Integra, wrecking as he was trying to get around to the pits. So that set the grid for Saturday. And then Saturday, it was full rain. Now, this brings me to Ken's car. For years and years, I have used liquid dial hand soap on the inside of windshields for anti-fog. And honestly, it's always worked really well for me, so I didn't even think twice about it. We did it. We completely did, the inside of the windshield, and Joe even had a little remote blower blowing on the windshield, and it only lasted like 5 laps. So he had to come in because he couldn't see. So that was unfortunate, because he was moving up looking really good. So on Sunday's race, we had a dry race, which was nice. And unfortunately, he got caught up with Chris Shaftsma up in turn 6. And what do I always say about cars that have damage on the nose? If you're the car that's got damage on your nose, that means you did the hitting, right? So it sounds like Ken actually admitted that he made a big mistake and shouldn't have done what he did. And so we've got something bent. So we had a vibration, we've got a little bit of body damage, and didn't get to race on Sunday either. Now, the highlights. He said the car handled beautifully. He said the transmission worked beautifully. We had a good rain setup. We had a good dry setup. We just didn't get results. So we are now on runoffs prep mode. Obviously the car's in pretty good shape. I need to check the suspension and get all that taken care of. But yeah, shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's kind of the story. So the Camaro made it up to the track, and if you guys were paying any attention, you know that basically the poor guys in the GT group got like no laps. Why is that? Well, there was like 70-something cars, and I don't know if it's a case of too many guys with too much horsepower and not enough skill. I don't know exactly what the problem is, but these guys couldn't stay on the track and not hit each other to save their life. Now, Steve kept his nose very clean. The car came back completely undamaged. Everything's fine. I've got a little list of things to do. That transmission is actually a spare transmission that is going to go in before he goes to Hallett. But the car's basically here to get prepped. He's going to go out to High Plains next weekend for the 4th of July. So unfortunately, because we got the car so late in the season, he hasn't gotten to race much. So now he's going to go race in the summer when I don't want to go racing in the summer, obviously, right? So all we've got is we actually had a fitting on the transmission that needed to be replaced. We're going to get it all checked over, but literally he didn't get very many laps in up there. A little disappointing to not test the car more than we did, but car's in good shape at least. Can't say that for a lot of the cars in the GT class because they had the proverbial you-know-what show going on, especially on Sunday's race in the dry. So that's kind of our update on the Camaro. So there's no other cars in the shop, of course, except for the Mazda 2. Okay. Let's talk about the Mazda 2. The results really don't show exactly how the weekend went because, yes, I won both days after starting 4th both days. So in the rain, it'll kind of be interesting. The video's not very good because in the rain race on Saturday, it was a monsoon. And when you're back about row 7 and you've got, 13 cars ahead of you, you can't see anything, right? The spray is so bad. And I don't know what it was, but the video doesn't show it very well because it was a really overcast day, obviously, and there's like a lot of white stuff on the windshield. Maybe what we'll do is we'll put up like one lap from the race on Saturday. So we got going at the beginning. For those of you guys that have seen me race in the rain, I just love racing in the rain, right? So I threw a bunch of stuff at the car. I've never raced this car in the rain, not once. So made a bunch of changes to the car that I thought would really work in the rain, and it actually worked out really well. I was on the right line. If you were on the left line, you got a much better start than those of us in the right line because we got all checked up on the inside. And shout out to Chuck Mathis, who basically went around everybody in the first 3 corners and got up to like 3rd overall. Also, Steven Simons was up to 2nd overall, like that. So those guys were like flying. So we had a full course caution almost right away. What was it for? Oh, I know. Jim Samaras, poor Jim Samaras, and his new to him ex-John Brackey Miata crashed into the wall on the first lap of the race. So everything got sorted out. I think I was sitting, I must have been 2nd in H at that point, but I'm sitting like back in 10th, and I can see Chuck way up there, 3rd overall, like 7 cars ahead of me. I've got all these F production cars ahead of me. But we got restarted and I started moving up, right? So I passed a few cars. So rain's the great equalizer, and the car was awesome in the rain once I figured out how to drive a front wheel drive car in the rain. The car was really good. So I'm moving up, and I can see that I'm catching Chuck, and Chuck's up there with Mason Workman. and I can see that I'm catching him. Like every lap I'm gaining, like it seems like 3 seconds or so. So we've got like 2 laps to go. I'm coming out of the kink, and we're going down into Canada corner, and I see poor Chuck Mathis go straight into the gravel. So I think he got caught out by the brakes. You know, brakes were wet. It was really tricky conditions. He barreled straight off into the gravel trap, unfortunately, and couldn't get out. So I inherited the lead, and I had a big enough lead to where nobody could catch me. So that's how I won Friday's race. So, or Saturday's race. Sunday, we got a dry race. It's kind of weird because I'm gonna post the race for Sunday's race, the whole thing. And it was spitting a little bit, so you'd get a little rain on your windshield, but the track was dry, right? So got going, coming up to the line. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go into the office real quick, and I'm gonna talk about what happened in the first lap of this race. Initially, I was pretty disappointed in what happened, but after watching the video a few more times, I've kind of come up with a little bit different analysis. So come on in here and take a quick look. I'm going to pause this as we go. Okay guys, here we are. You can see I've got a really nice rear view camera. We got Chris Bovis right here and Bill Miller in the BMW. And I've got Ken Kannard right next to me. You can just see his nose right there. There he is, right there. So we're coming up to the line, and I see Sargis pulling over. So what does that mean? So this is something maybe you guys haven't seen before. When a guy pulls over, like if he pulls off or goes into the grid or goes into the pits, you don't hold your spot. You move, the whole line moves up, right? The whole line moves forward. Chris knows this. He moves forward. I move up next to Chuck Mathis. And all of a sudden, now I've got Chris Bovis behind me and Ken Kannard behind me. So now we've got Chuck next to me, Chris Shaftsma, there's Steven Simons, David Bednars, and then we've got more Blue Miatas up here. So Stephen Powers, you can see there's John Brackey in his BMW. Anyway, so we're coming up to the line, and all of a sudden we start going really slow. So look at this, we're going 36 miles an hour. Now, probably what I'm about to say is a little controversial because the rule is I think you're supposed to keep pace car speed, right? Coming to the green flag. I'm only going to say this because this is how I do it and I've never been busted on this. But personally, as the pole sitter, I think you should bring your car up to a speed that works for your gearing. Now, I'm not saying that you should go from 36 to 76, but I would probably bring my car up to a little more speed. And it's also really tough for guys because all of a sudden here, I just went down into first gear. So when you've got a start that's this slow, this kind of stuff can breed a lot of problems because all of a sudden you got guys that have to do a whole lot of shifting, and you can really get stacked up. Now, that being said, I got the best start of my life right here. So we're accelerating a little bit, coming under the bridge. So here's the Flagtronics. You can see it right here. So this, when it's got this blue, basically that means you are behind the pace car. This thing's going to turn green right as the flag comes out. Now I'm a little old school. I'm not quite used to the Flagtronics yet, so I'm watching the starter, and I just happen to have a really good look at it. But check this out. We're coming up. Everybody accordions. Shaftsma pulls up, and just as I'm accelerating in first gear, the starter throws the green. Check out this start. Boom. Right around him. I jumped all these guys. So look at this. Now I've got a beautiful draft. Here's Chris behind me right here. I'm all the way up. There's David Bednar, Stephen Powers, Mason Workman, John Brackey. I just jumped a whole row. It's like the best start I've ever gotten in my whole life. I imagine Chris is like, what just happened? So here's Ken. We're going down into turn one. A little bit of traffic down here. Everybody's behaving really well. You can see these guys are almost 3 wide, not quite. Steven was very smart to not stick his nose in here because this is how bad things happen. Okay, coming out of 1. You can see I've got a little bit of a sandwich going on here. Here's Steven Simons. I'm trying to give him some room. I'm sure that Stephen Powers doesn't even know that I'm here. Obviously, I'm looking straight forward. Chris is right here. He is right on my right rear corner. So right there, I lifted just a tiny bit because I'm going to pull in back behind Stephen Powers. Okay, here we are coming into turn 3. All I'm seeing right now is I've got a Miata here and I've got a Miata here. I don't even know that Chris is here, and maybe that's on me, but I don't have, I don't know. I didn't see him. You can see this little spot right here in the window. This is my back window, which is essentially the back of the car, and I'll show you guys that when we go out and take a look at the car. But this is the very back of the car, so I can see, you know, a little bit of his door handle right here. Here he's pulling up on me a little bit, so this is the back of his door. I would say the back of his door is almost to my bumper. He's pulling up a little bit more. So the question is, how far alongside of me is he? I personally didn't even know he was there. I'm imagining, considering this is my back window and it's probably about the back of his door, I imagine that his nose, his front bumper is probably right about to my door, right? My front door, right at the back edge of the front door. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. Now he's pulling up a little bit more. So he's definitely pulling up on me here a little bit. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, it doesn't really look like there's room for 2 cars coming into turn 3 here. Stephen Powers moves to the left. And I think what I was thinking, because he's already on the brakes, right? And we are, so normally coming into here, I'm hitting the brakes about the 200 marker. And we didn't even come through turn 1 very fast. So he's on the brakes. I'm going to go inside of him here, I think. Yep, I think I'm going to go inside of him. So you can see Chris right here. Once again, I didn't even know he was here. So I'm pretty sure I moved over to the right a little bit and he ran out of room. So initially, when I first saw this, and you guys are going to see this here in just a second, right there. So we made contact coming into 3. And to me, it was a pretty good hit. And I didn't know he was there. And obviously, he didn't back out of it. So initially, I was pretty upset about getting turned like this. But check this out. So this was not a light hit, right? So I'm correcting. You can see my hands are to the left. Here we are dead sideways. You're going to see the back of the field here in just a second. There's Stephen Powers going by. Here's the rest of the field coming down the hill. So I'm almost facing backwards here. Somehow, some way, this car self-corrected itself. I don't know how it happened, but here's Shaftsma right here. I just did 180 and back and grabbed second gear, and off we go. So, an interesting incident, right? A really interesting incident. I think people have different opinions about this. Whenever I talk to my customers about when you're going to pass somebody, I always tell them, okay, I think you should be either here or just tuck in behind. Yeah, I mean, even if you're right here, I always say back off and just follow through, especially on the first lap, right? I wouldn't say he was, I mean, Chris is a great guy, nice guy. I know he didn't do this on purpose. I do remember last year when we raced, I ended up telling him that he needed to up his aggression. And because I was able to like get through traffic better than he did, and he ended up getting caught out by some F cars. But I'm going to kind of stick by, I hope that he can post his video. I hope he will post his video, because I just can't tell by my video if he's next to me. If he would have been next to me, there's no way that I would have moved over a little bit, right? So Randy Pope's vortex of doom, I think that's what he calls it, or vortex of danger. I personally, coming into a corner, if you know a guy's got someone to the left, I don't think there's any reason to go 3 wide into turn 3 personally on the first lap. So my suggestion would have been that he back off and follow me through. I'm pretty sure that he thinks I basically ran him into the grass, but like I said, in my ignorance, I didn't even see you there, Chris. I'm sorry. So let's go take a look at the damage on the car. I was able to continue the race, and with an extremely flat spotted right front tire that I'll show you guys. But check this out. Check this wheel out. This wheel is, look at the lip. Ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. And I saw this and I'm like, how in the world did that tire not go flat? I mean, this wheel got nailed, right? Then I realized in impound that he's running wheels like this. So these are these Avanti Storms, and the spokes stick out from the wheel like Ben-Hur racing chariots, right? He's got one of these wheels. This wheel is what did this to my Inky. That's pretty crazy, I think, right? So I honestly thought that probably the rear axle beam was bent, but I actually checked the alignment yesterday morning and it's not. So what we've got is a little bit of damage to the flare here that I'm going to have to do some work on. Lost a wheel, but check this out. See if you can get a look at this flat spot. So I didn't get a chance to, that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is cord. So I didn't get a chance to scuff these tires before the race, so I actually went out on sticker tires. So sticker to cord in 2 corners. Pretty impressive, right? So the rest of the race, going down the straight, it's the whole race, going through the carousel. I'm like, man, I hope this thing holds together. And unfortunately, Chris got hit by Ken and fell back, and I was able to put some really good laps together. And I think Chuck might have gotten tied up with some of the F production traffic. You know what happens when you're running an H car, just like some of the F cars have to deal with some of the E cars, right, Steven? So everybody gets their chance to deal with mixed class racing, except for I ended up in clear air. So ran the whole race. We didn't have any full course caution in the race, which was good for me because I was able to get a pretty nice little gap, and ran some hard, consistent laps even with the flat spotted tire. Didn't affect it too badly. Fortunately, it was on the right front and not the left front. If it was the left front, I don't know that we'd have made it through the race. But quite the weekend between the rain and the racing and all the action that went on. It was quite the weekend. So fun weekend. Of course, learned a lot about the car, right? So went up there to check the transmission gearing, which was good. Got the opportunity to learn about racing this car in the rain, which is awesome. And had a good time. So got to see a bunch of people and tried to stay dry, which we did a pretty good job at, and got on home. You know, we raced actually Sunday morning at like 8:45. So I got loaded and left the track before noon on Sunday and made it back to Topeka about 10:30 Sunday night. So it was a good weekend. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to post that whole video. You guys can make all the comments you want about that video. I feel like it was basically a racing incident. Like if he'd have been further back and nailed me, that would have been different. But yeah, I kind of get his point that he was quite a ways up on me. Probably not enough to make it 3 wide on the first lap, but either way, not mad about it. I hope he's not too upset about it. I didn't mean to run you into the grass, Chris. Looking forward to the runoffs and racing with you guys. Hopefully Steve Sargis will get his car figured out. I don't know exactly what happened to him. And of course, Chuck Mathis, running an H production this year for the first time, is doing really well as well. So really looking forward to racing against the VW Mafia and everybody else at the runoff. So we are on full-blown runoff prep time. I'm going to get back to my engine, going to get back to, you know, chipping away. You can see I've already got the car jacked up, right? So I'm going to get the tires off. I'm going to start checking things over. I've got what? We've got 3 months. So in 3 months, we're going to have the car ready to go. I suggest you start doing the same thing. Thanks for watching, guys. Like always, have a great rest of your week, and watch out for the in-car videos that should be coming up soon. Take care.